Creative Katie, welcome to my version of the Index Card a Day 2019, part of my Create Daily series. Today, this page is a quote journal page on the BU theme, and the technique is removing paint through a stencil, but with metallic, so it's got a twist. And today you're going to get a bonus ICAD, also part of my quote journal in the BU theme. So I'm starting here. This was a page that had a coat of green paint on it, and then I put a coat of gesso on it, and it didn't cover it because the page, there's something on the other side and it's not exactly flat. So I wanted to experiment with the technique of removing paint through a stencil, but first, instead of just gesso as the first layer, I'm putting a color of paint, and in this case, metallics. And I want to see if when I pull the paint through the stencil, what effect I get, and if I get that shimmer and shine from the metallics. This is cobalt blue metallic. It's an Artist Loft brand, luscious color. It's more of a teal or turquoisey color in my mind than blue, but then I'm going to, on top, put a darker color, and that's what I'm going to remove through the stencil, hoping that this metallic paint underneath is going to peek through and give me the effect that I want. So once you start a technique, then you can, the first time I do a technique, I tend to follow it exactly, and then I kind of start doing my own thing. So here I'm thinning the paint down a little bit. You do, when you remove it, you want to remove acrylic paint, you need to work fairly quickly because you don't want the paint to dry a lot because you want to be able to remove it. And that's why if you have it gessoed or painted, it's going to remove easier. So this is the Sea Bubbles stencil. And I thought this would be a good background for my night sky, which is what I'm going to make. My quote has a moon in it, and that's my focal point. So I just kind of wanted a night sky, but I didn't want to go with stars. I also wanted it to kind of resemble ocean because my quote has waves in it. So I remove it, and absolutely loving. You can't totally tell here, but the shimmer comes through. The paint lifts it really easily with the metallic. It has a bit of a different finish than other paints. And so I am just drying this before I move to the next step. And over here, because it was so wet, I've got kind of some dendritic patterning going on, and I'm okay with that because it's just added luscious texture. And my focal point's fairly big, so if I didn't like it, I could work it so that was covered up. So my quote is, don't worry if you're making waves simply by being yourself. The moon does it all the time. So here is my moon, and this is a Silhouette Cameo cut file that I bought from Silhouette, and I'm going to paint this gold. Yellow gold against the dark blue background it's going to really pop. They're complementary colors. They're across from each other on the color wheel. But usually with metallics, it does take a couple coats to get the depth of color that I typically want. So that's what you're seeing me doing here. I'm just adding a couple layers or coats of the gold metallic paint. Now, after this was done, I was kind of wishing that I had done something, especially on the moon part, not so much the fairy part, to texturize the moon. So I could have removed a stencil, I could have stenciled on it, I could have done some stamping ahead of time, and I wish I had because it looks a little too plain to me. So here I'm just placing the stencil in the midst, and I've cut my quote apart, played around with the location, and I started it at the top, and I have it so that your eye goes down throughout the whole thing. And now I'm just using gel medium to glue down the sentiment. So this could be the moon with the ocean underneath her, it could be the moon in the sky. Both kind of tie in with my quote. I fussy cut this because I just wanted it to be spread apart, and I didn't want as much of the white showing around on the gold of the moon. Even a script stamp would have looked lovely on the moon there. So this is my woodless charcoal pencil, and I'm using this to shade around the outside edges of the page, as well you're going to see me going around the focal image. I love this woodless charcoal pencil. You can sharpen it with just a regular sharpener to get a point, and that can get closer to when you're going around a focal image. And it's a very quick, easy way of shading. So if you're struggling with the shading, this may give you the effect that you want. And I'll put a link to this and the stencil, and I think the fine line bottle that I use later, in case you're looking for these or want to know more about them. Sometimes if you see the visual, it kind of helps. Just a reminder, I do get a small commission if you shop through my Amazon links. Thank you very much, but it does not cost you more. And if you check the price and there's a different link that's a better price, I still get that commission. So you don't have to worry about, only shopping the links. And please do check the prices. They do not stay the same. And then to get in closer to the image, I got one of the blending tools, and someone very nicely told me the name of what this is. It's just cardboard, and it is for blending charcoal. But it works really easy and quick. So it gets into those finer areas where your finger may not be able to get in. And because it gets into that, it pushes the charcoal right next to the sentiment or the image that you're shading around. And this brings us to the end of this one, but stay tuned because I'm going to tell you how I finished the other quote journal Art Daily page. So what you're looking at here is a completed ICAD, a page in my quote journal. And the reason that there's no video for this is because this one just evolved over time. The background had been gessoed in when I was getting ready for my quote journal. The paint, the magenta paint that I have on there, one day I had excess left over on my palette and I just spread it right on here. So that was done. Then I had some leftover
white pearl modeling paste that I was using with this Magnolia Blossom stencil, TCW 815, and I put the leftovers on there. Then I was playing around and I colorized it, and then it sat for a long time. I got some gold that was left to go over on my palette, and it got splattered on. And again, it sat for a long time. I came across this quote in a magazine as I was doing my quote journal, and I had it set on my desk and thinking, okay, you know, that's a good quote. Maybe I can use it. Nearly did it for the reflection quote or prompt, or the goggles one. It kind of got pulled out. And then I just realized that the color of it is just exactly perfect for this. So I just did that. I shaded with my soft woodless charcoal and went around with the gold in my fine line bottle. And easy peasy, this one was done in drips over time.